Where's the crazy one? The crazy one has a tennis ball. He wants me to throw it. I can't, Winston! Oh, don't go in the flowers. Winston, I have to do a blog. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Alright, I think here's hoping this turns out okay at the angle it's at. Hello everybody, it is Tuesday, and it is actually Tuesday. I always try and start these on Sunday, and then I just spend those days sort of doing practice runs, and then I get to Tuesday, I'm like, I have a better idea. So that's where we are today. As you can see, I am outside, and I just thought I'd be outside today because it is such a gorgeous day here in Wotown in September. So today I'm going to talk to you about authors and I guess books I read and their influence on me, and I guess just what I like to read. I read fantasy, I read a little bit of sci-fi, some non-fiction, usually on just topics I'm interested in, nothing in particular. And I like to read, I guess I like to read books about, that give me insight into other things. I'm going to read past you here and start this off with some good books. I have a ton of books. This was so hard to pick. So I started off with the essentials. Animorphs is an essential. Has been and always will be an essential. I read these series growing up, starting middle school, maybe even elementary school. I don't know when they came out, but a long time. And I read them all the way to the end, and this is one of the sort of extra stories that they have. It's Megamorphs 2. It's Megamorphs 2. They go back in time and dinosaurs, so it's pretty awesome. It's published by Scholastic. It's at a kid's reading level. Really dark themes, really heavy themes about war and morality and death and a lot of nature stuff. Kids turn into animals. It's really cool, and they fight aliens, but it's really sad too. But yeah, this is one of the things I read. So moving on, next book I have up here is In the Hand of the Goddess by Tamora Pierce. It's part of the Lioness Quartet. It's part of the Song of the Lioness Quartet. I picked this up when I was in elementary school. I don't know what grade, but it's the second book, and then I went back and read the first book and read the other two, and I've been hooked ever since. I like these books because not only do they have really good storytelling, they have a solid construction of the world, and they're very well written, without being over the top, so these are pretty good. The Vampire Lestat from the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. A lot of subtext in this, a lot of writing, and very extravagant type characters that really remind me of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Dorian Gray went off and spent money and wore clothes and ate crazy food and went to the theater at night and went dancing and had a life completely lacking in morals just because his morals were going to the painting instead of on him. So he was turning sort of evil without meaning to. Perpetual innocence, kind of dangerous when you're rich. Anyway, this series is really good, lots of subtext, like I said. Vampires that actually have the sort of sexual subtext that's not accidental. I don't know, fighting and death and I don't know, I just like Vampire Chronicles. So, another book series, His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. Puppy, do not bark. You are cute, but you are loud. You are I know, no, not right now. I can't. His Dark Materials, I read Amber Spyglass in middle school, and then I read Subtle Knife in high school, and then I was like, gee, I'm in college, maybe I should read the third one, so I did. And I really enjoy these because they sort of open my eyes to how else fantasy can be, as opposed to the sort of traditional, I suppose, fantasy where it's another world and they have magic, and it's very solid. Things wrap themselves up very well, and I mean there's horrific things, but it's not like completely ghastly, and there's some things that are really horrific in this book series. Not like blood, guts, and gore, but just sort of like disturbing. Like at one point, spoiler, by the way, there's a world that they go to where once you grow up, once you hit a certain level of maturity, not like mentally, but just, you know, physically, the creatures that live there will sort of eat your essence and your soul until you become this sort of blank, mindless zombie, and you just don't do anything ever again. And I'm sure it was a metaphor, but it was really creepy because you just had this entire world of these terrified children who were, you know, knowing that they were going to grow up and basically turn into zombies, so it was kind of creepy. And there's just stuff like that in this series. And there's also some very beautiful stuff, but it really opened my eyes to how fantasy does not have to be necessarily traditionally, oh, we have unicorns and flying horses and dragons and all that stuff. Like, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can get creative. So, Stephen King's on writing. So the only good thing that came out of my high school creative writing class. Like, the only good thing. No, the other good thing was that I got to spend a lot of time with my good friend Shelly Bean. So Stephen King's on writing is really good. It's not like an instructional book on how to get rich or how to write well. It's just, oh, hey, I'm a writer, and this is how I became a writer, and this is where I think ideas come from, which is, you know, just stuff that comes together in your brain, and here's what I think you should do, you should look for when you're writing. This book turned me off adverbs, or at least made me not use them a lot anymore. So Stephen King's on writing, very good, pick it up, lots of good info, and even if you don't agree with everything, it's a lot of really good insight, and I mean, something's got to be working for him, so you might as well. I also read a lot of nonfiction. You can probably see really bad angles of me right here. I also read a lot of nonfiction, possibly not as fast as I go through fantasy and fiction and other things, just because, I don't know, it's not a story, there's a lot more thought processes going through it. I suppose I could have, this is nonfiction too. A few things that I have out of the library right now. Ladies Who Launch, it's about entrepreneurship. I barely started reading this, I don't know why I picked this up. Why I Am a Buddhist. Just thought it looked interesting. It was on the return pile, and I wanted to see if I could check it out, and I could, so I'm reading it. I barely started, like I got to the first page, so I can't tell you anything about it. So another one that I have is The Writer's Journey, which is Mythic Structure for Writers, by Christopher Vogler. I picked this up because I'm applying for something that this is like their the book that they really endorse. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll read that, because it looks interesting. I like to write from an intuitive place, but I also like to read different perspectives and like try and break it down. I mean, because then you can actively participate in the construction of your own fiction instead of just letting it gush out of you. I can't exactly show you that, fan fiction is another thing that I read, but I read a lot of fan fiction. I read a lot of online original fiction, often by fanfic writers, but also not. I like reading original fiction online. I don't necessarily know if it's different than published fiction. It has a very raw quality to it. Because, and I'm sure it's because it's directly from the author. They have, you can have a beta reader who will read it for you and review it and make sure you're not completely messing with your own continuity. But that's usually the only interference you have between what the author wrote and what you're reading. Whereas if you read a book, any book you read, now, I guess if you're a best-selling author, they're not going to tweak it as much, but any book that you read is going to have gone through the editorial process, and people are going to have thought about, okay, what can we put in here, what's acceptable, what are we going to make money off of, because it's a business element. And when you read fiction online, like at fictionpress.net, just to give an example, you're not going to get the very business-driven end of fiction. You're just going to get fiction that people are like, oh, I'm inspired by this, and I'm going to write it. And, it doesn't even necessarily have to be insanely high-quality writing in order to be really good. You can still feel sort of a heart beating through it. And I think if you can feel the heart beating in a story, regardless of whether or not there's continuity issues, like little small ones, or you feel that like there's a couple grammar errors and stuff, it's still enjoyable. So I really enjoy reading original fiction and fan fiction that's posted online, because it's directly from the author. And it just feels different. If I had to talk about how that influenced my writing style, I guess I would say the heaviest influence I've had on my writing style would be the fan fiction and the original fiction online. Just because, like I said, it's very raw, and I would prefer to have writing that sounds raw and might not necessarily be for all audiences in the sense that it would appeal to everybody, but it's very true to what the author is, trying to say, or just what they see in their head going down. They're not trying to be good, it's just what happens in the story that they see playing through their head, so they write it down. And, yeah, I think that's it, so I'm going to end it here. This is the end of Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I don't know what I'll be doing. I just realized I forgot my Beanie Baby. I'm sorry. It's too warm out here. I was gonna have a white tiger, and she would have been too warm out here. So it's just as well. But yeah, that is the end of Tuesday, and I will see you guys next week, bright and early-ish, to talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about next week. Tomorrow's Jessie. Tune in. She'll tell you about her awesome stuff, and see you later. Subscribe. Press the button below. I have more books than you could shake a stick at. I have a lot of awesome books.